This is one of the most well-behaved groups I've ever had. Just all went.
Man, if we went, John would be disappointed.
Make an entrance.
That's the way John North would have liked it.
Welcome, everyone. My name is Kelly Wilson, and on behalf of John's family and the Route Song Funeral Home family, thank you all so much for being here today as we honor the life of a wonderful man. At this time, I would ask that you please check your cell phones, make sure they are set to silence out of respect for today's services. Thank you. Now I'd like to introduce our celebrant today, Mr. Brian Bennett.
Well, as Kelly said, thank you all so much for I know to the family, it just means the world to see so many different people from different chapters of John's life. And it would be fascinating to be able to look down on a room like this and to see all the different years and the conversations and the experiences and to know that we all wound up here together today. And let's be honest, nobody wants to be here today. It's just very hard. And there's always one person that's still
That would be the sister.
His
Nobody
sister,
surprised.
but I met Nikki earlier and I'm not 1 ounce surprised. And I will say, I love to come early because I love to meet people and talk to people about how you might have known John. And I will say that you guys were a little rowdy for the day of a service, but from what I heard about John and his story, that's exactly what he would want. Because he said to me, when I pulled in today and saw the parking lot packed and walked in and felt the energy that immediately adds to the story that I got to hear. I had the privilege the other day of sitting down with Tracy and Shane and Drew, and I said, just my privilege is I get to hear the story of someone that I don't know. I've been all over social media and read all the newspaper articles about who he was and the difference he made, but to hear from these guys was powerful. And they just did a phenomenal job of being able to paint a picture of him for me. And I know that, for several years, he's been fighting illness and keep going, keep doing what he had to do. But I know that the end here is somewhat of a surprise. It came fairly unexpectedly, and that's one more layer of difficulty to have to deal with. I'll be honest, 57 years old is just not old enough. It's just not. A very wise person once said, it's okay to miss him. It's okay to say his name every day if you need to. It's okay to keep talking to him. It's okay to breathe deeply. It's okay to smile when you think of him. It's okay to have days when you can function, and it's going to be okay to have days when you just can't. It's okay to be angry. It's okay to remember. It's okay to hope. It's okay to be thankful. The biggest thing is it's okay to be honest about however it is you're feeling. And that's probably the biggest thing that I've learned over the last few years. Because the reason I do this, I have a normal day job like most of you. I'm a leadership consultant by day, which also fascinated me about what John did for a living. But I do this with the Route Song team because several years ago I lost my mom at a fairly young age. And what you're doing today, by coming together and sharing stories and laughing and crying and shaking hands and hugging, it is such a huge part of the healing process. And what I've learned over the last few years is grief is messy. It just affects everybody different because you all have different relationships with them. And the biggest thing that I've learned about grief is the only right way to feel is exactly however you're feeling today. And the best thing that a family can do is just give each other space to feel however, and not to project how you're feeling on how everybody else should be. And that's what I've sensed, is the family's giving each other space. And what I've seen, especially in a young passing like this, is sometimes the family feels obligated to, and that's backwards. Community and supporting them, I have a feeling it's going to carry on the weeks and months ahead. I'm a big reader, and one of my favorite authors is a guy named Frederick Bachman. I was reading one of his books the other night, and this paragraph kind of popped off the page, so I got up and I typed it out because I thought it was so powerful. He said, over time, I've realized that deep down, almost everyone asks themselves the same sort of questions about life. And it sounds to me from the story that John was asking himself these kinds of questions. Kind of questions like, am I a good person? Have I made anyone proud? Am I useful to society? Am I good at my job? Am I considered generous and considerate? Does anyone want me to be their friend? Have I been a good parent? Am I a good person? And ultimately, we ask ourselves the question, does my life even matter? And you guys are showing today, by showing up in such a strong number, John's life mattered. And it sounds to me like he could go down that list and check yes, 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 and yes on every single one of those questions. I'm a big believer in something that I call holy collisions. And what I mean by that is over the course of our lives, if you think about it, there are certain times that we're lucky enough to run into the exact right person at the exact right time of our lives for the exact right reason that we were supposed to run into that person. That's what I call a holy collision. You might be sitting next to one of your holy collisions right now. And you think back to that first moment you met. Where were you? And who saw the other first? And who approached the other first? And what was it you saw in each other that has led to the significant relationship that it is today? Because if you think about it, we can set aside all of our accomplishments, all the stuff we've ever owned, and what life really boils down to, especially on a day like today, is relationships. It's those significant, holy collision relationships. And whenever I have the privilege to do a service like this, I consider this group sitting in this room on this afternoon, we're our own version of a holy collision. Try to explain to me how this group of humans would ever be at the same place at the same time. And let's be honest, when we parked our cars a little bit ago, I would say most of us have things we're worrying about. There's decisions we're trying to make. There might be something going on in your life right now that nobody else in this room is aware of. And all that stuff's going to be waiting for us when we go back and get in our cars. So my hope and my prayer for the time we have together for the next few minutes is very simple. By the time we go back to our busy lives, we take some of His Spirit with us. Because to me, that is the best way to celebrate someone's life. Over the last decade, we've kind of moved away from calling what we're doing here today a funeral. And you're hearing more and more life celebration. And I like that shift because as hard as a day like today is, and let's be honest, it's brutal. There's also a lot to celebrate in His 57 years. So before I go any further, if you're comfortable joining me, I'd like to ask you if you would join me just in a quick word of prayer. Okay? God, I thank you for this holy collision of friends, family, colleagues that span decades. And I don't know how you do it, but I have a personal belief that you can look down a room like this and you know what's going on in the lives of every person in every chair. So I pray, God, that in the few moments that we have today, that we might hear something or remember something or change our perspective on something or even feel something that we could immediately put into place in our own lives today. And by doing that, we'll make sure that the impact of John's life carries on way beyond today, but in the weeks, months, and years ahead. So God, thank you for letting us be together today. I pray for comfort. I pray for peace. I pray for understanding. And I pray for the freedom to feel however it is we're feeling. In your name we pray these things. Amen. One of his main holy collisions is this lovely lady down here I got to meet. And I asked them how they met. They were both working at GM, and she made it plain that John was the pursuer. This was way back before dating apps. They both swiped right on each other, and it must have worked because that has led to this time together. And just what the love that I got to hear from this family for their dad was just amazing for their husband. And so for the next few minutes, I'm going to get out of the way because the people that knew him best are going to come up and share their relationship with him. Nikki, I'm a little nervous to have you come up here, but I'm really glad that you are. Nikki's going to come, and then Tracy's going to come, and then the boys are going to come. Okay?
I'm nervous too.
I said I didn't need this mic because I got a big voice. John would say so too. So I'm going to read something that my sister wrote. Don't look, you're going to make me cry. John, I will forever cherish every moment we've ever had. The fun times like when you were serenading me out of the blue. When I was 18 and you took me to my favorite band, Def Leppard, for my birthday. And the time I was so afraid to ride the beast, you said you would hold my hand, and you did, all the way to the top. Then you decided to drop my hand, and then both of yours went up straight up in the air, leaving me scared to death. I love you, and we'll miss you. Our late night phone calls, our little out to eat, hang out, You are my only brother, and I couldn't ask God for a better one. I really have no words except I will forever miss you and forever love you. I will always be your baby Todd. Okay, let me cry. I was gonna do good. Tracy, wanna talk about us? Okay, so John, y'all know him as a wonderful man. Yes, he was a wonderful man, except when he was little and shoved me in a dryer. And all my mom heard was, Mom. And then she had to ask John where I was at, and he said, in the dryer. So we had many times of that, just great times. He was a wonderful brother. Couldn't ask for a better brother in the world. But John, God rest your soul. Tracy and I ain't gonna go as far as what you did, but Tracy and I, John, we spent a lot of adventures at doctors, because not everybody knew how sick he was, but he was. Worked every day. So we're like, okay, we're ready to go eat. Of course, Tracy says, now, John, you know Nikki don't like that funny food. I went, it better not be no funky food, I'm not eating it. Then he goes, okay, turn here, turn here. Tracy and I look and we're like, I'm just gonna say it, but I won't say it. We're like, what the F? Where do you have us, John Edward? Tracy's in the back panicking. I'm like, the doors are locked, Trace, we're good. Because some of the sketchy areas he would take us to go eat at a restaurant. But we did it, didn't we, Tracy?
Yes, we did.
We did it. And all I can say is the best man ever. Will never ever meet anybody like him. And I can say at least I had the pleasure of spending pretty much the last week he had, just him and me in Florida. Best thing ever, pouring milk all freaking night long. And one half a gallon wasn't enough, I had to go buy a gallon. And he drank the whole thing. And then he said, I'm gonna say this last thing. I don't move when I sleep. Don't move at all. So he told me when we were in Florida, he goes, Nikki, he goes, oh my God, you scared me. And I said, what did I do? He goes, I got up to get some food. He said, you didn't budge. He said, I opened up the refrigerator, opened up the cupboards, got the milk, got the cookies, pouring it, eating it, and eating it. And I looked over again. He goes, you still ain't moving. He said, I didn't know if you were all right or not. He said, I almost checked on you, but I didn't. But anyways, that's mine and John's story. And Tracy and I are going to go out once in a while to a nice restaurant and just think of John without the sketchy areas. All right, thank you.
Thank you all for coming and honoring my husband, John. For those who don't know me, I am Tracy, John's wife, 35 plus years and always. Our love story began 35 years ago when I was hired by Eleanor Graham, who was president and CEO of the United Health Services. Eleanor hired me to be her secretary. John was working there too. John captured my heart with his huge sense of humor, kindness, and generosity, but most of all, his determination. John always had a quick wit to make everyone laugh. John especially loved April Fool's Day. The first year I was in an apartment, and I went out to go to work, and my car was gone. I ran back to tell John, telling him my car was not there. He played his role perfectly, running out the door and looking everywhere and saying, it's stolen. Finally, seeing I had had enough, he took me around the corner to where he had secretly parked my car. John also loved to prank his grandma Shirley. His grandma Shirley was crazy about the boys. So he said, let's pretend we have the flu and we'll put them in bed with us. John made his prank call to Grandma Shirley, and within 5 minutes, Grandma was there yelling, give me those babies. John started laughing and jumped out of bed and said, we're fine. These couple of stories give you a small preview of a lifetime of laughter I had with John. John loved his family. This was always evident by the way he looked out for us. Even now, I feel him watching over me and the boys. John taught me self-acceptance, confidence, resilience, and made me strong. I will carry these traits with me always. John, you have shaped me into the woman I am today. I am grateful for the love, laughter, and guidance, and the wonderful, extraordinary family we have built. You will be missed by everyone. John, you will be safe in my heart and my spirit until the day we meet again. You are my husband, my love, and my rock. I thank you all for the love and support and being here to celebrate and honor my husband, John.
Well, friends and
Hey, keep in mind I'm next, don't breathe.
Well, first of all, friends and family, I want to thank you all for being here, for celebrating my dad. He left an impact on all of us and everyone he touched with so much joy and happiness, and he had a personality really unlike any other human I've met, from his outgoingness to all of his honorary traits. I'm sure we all had many interactions with that. Also, I want to thank the Route Songs for hosting and putting together this event. I've had a great working relationship with them for many years, and they've been nothing but the best for our family, making sure we all got the help we needed. So just to begin, my life started with a tremendous blessing. I was born to my mom, Tracy, and my dad, John. My dad, truly, I thought this for a long time, in reflection with his passing. I really feel like he was put on for this earth to be a dad. He was a father that raised a young man with love, unwavering support, and selflessness. I remember when I was young, and to this last day, he always reminded me that I was his best friend. And he did anything and everything to remind me of that each day, reminding me that I was his best friend. This is really demonstrated back to early on in my life. One of my favorite childhood memories of my dad was anytime a storm came when I was at school. As a kid, I was really afraid of thunderstorms, and anytime they put you in those tornado drills and anything of that sort, it really freaked me out. He knew that. So I'd be, in my little self, huddled against the wall, terrified, crying, and out come through the hallway, you'd hear a teacher yell, "Hey, Drew North, your dad's here." And I'd be running down the hallway, tears in hand, and I'd see him, and he'd be there with his arms outstretched, and he'd take me, put me in the car, take me home, and tell me everything. So that general sentiment really takes on the fact that through every iteration of my life, I saw him as kind of like my safety and my protector. As a young adult, I lacked a lot of confidence in myself, and when I saw flaws in a hard shell, he always inspired me tremendously to push past boundaries and get the best out of myself. As a kid, growing up, I always wanted to be like my dad. I was always so proud of his career, and I wanted to follow in his footsteps and do everything I can to give what he gave to my family, to my brother, his wife, my mom. Everything that he gave, I wanted to give it to my future family. Through all his guidance and reassurance, and even following in his shadow, working with him, luckily for the last 7 years, I was able to transform myself from a shy and confident kid to a man with the same degrees, professional aspirations, and goals in life that he had. My dad, and still will always remain my protector. He taught me what it means to put others first, and most importantly, he taught me what it means to be a dad and what that role comes with. Although he won't meet my future kids on this earth, I know he'll always be watching. And it's my mission in life to carry on his teachings in life and to provide for my future family with the same selflessness he did for me. So to my protector, Dad, thank you for being my father, and thank you for every moment you believed in me, and thank you for showing me what it means to be a man. And I will do everything in my power to continue to make you proud, and you've always told me I did.
I gotta follow that. Well, I'm sure everybody in here knows me, but if not, I'm Shane. I'm his oldest son. Although he is taller than me, I am the big brother here. So, I'll first off reiterate how big my dad was in my life, always being there. I mean, you look at his job title, CEO, and all that. That didn't really matter as much to me as him being my father. I played sports throughout my entire high school career and middle school. He never missed one thing unless I told him we were really going to lose bad. And I was like, Dad, please don't show up to this. But he would still show up. So my dad was always there. I got a little thing that I'll read. This is what I wrote up and kind of put my thoughts together. Dad, what a journey it has been. And I can still not believe you're gone. Can't believe you're right there. It really doesn't feel real. Your support, your generosity, and your love for your family shine like no other. You were a self-made man who rose from the streets of Old North Dayton. That was something he was very, very proud of. My wife, ironically, came from Old North Dayton. Surely did, just like other people. But you know what? He made it out. Himself, and it's a name that I wore across my back for years for football, and it's a name that will be with me forever. North. I always will carry that with pride. I will never forget the countless memories we shared, the trips to Washington, D.C., and especially Phoenix, Arizona. Phoenix, Arizona was a very important place to me growing up. Phoenix was always our special place, out in the desert. It was oftentimes just me and Dad exploring new land, laughing and living it up. This is something I'll just never forget, was going out there and just living it up, and just, he would take me to fancy restaurants, unfortunately for you. So we would dine it up. I even had rattlesnake out there with that, so that was experience. Another memory that was a core memory for me out there, my 16th birthday. He rented a Dodge Challenger to take out on the town, and that'd be our car for the weekend. Well, not having my license yet, but I had to. He let me drive that car around in the desert, and it was an experience I'll never forget. And I still have pictures of it this day, and you know, he likes Dodge cars a lot, so we got some. It may have been a small thing to Dad, but to me, it was one of the coolest memories, and the kind only a dad like him could have given. Phoenix also meant birthdays for me, and I'll explain that a little bit more here in a second. He always made sure I felt celebrated. I'll never forget during his annual conferences, and the big reason I was out there is the gathering of Better Business Bureau CEOs every year fell around my birthday. But it might have been my birthday, but he was always so excited to have me there because I would get paraded around. And people that know me, yes, I'm loud, but sometimes crowds aren't my thing. Well, he would parade me inside the conferences of Better Business Bureau CEOs, and they would all sing happy birthday to me because my birthday was February 21st, and that's exactly when it was. So that was a cool experience, and he would always make sure I had a cake there. I don't know how the cake ever showed up. I never saw him go get it, but a cake showed up for me there. He didn't have to do that, but he always went out of his way to make sure I felt special, and that's just who he was. He was a great dad. Other about Phoenix wasn't just special for me. One of the last big trips in the last couple of years, I got the honor of Drew joining us and kind of falling in love with the same city that I did. We had an unforgettable experience together, and I'll always be grateful that Drew got to feel that same love in that city that I did. And that memory of that trip will bring us together for years to come. I've always been proud to say, too, that my dad was John North, President and CEO of the Better Business Bureau of Dayton, Ohio. I know he wore that with pride and would love to be on the news. Mr. North, he was a guy that loved the spotlight, and I love that about him. But other than that title, I was just lucky to have you as my dad and best friend. And I'll share an excerpt on the best friend part too. If you look at his Facebook page, one of the last things he posted on there is a picture of God knows when, because I look really skinny and have really long hair. He posted my best friends, and it was a post from back then. And he said it still rings true today. So I'm glad that that's on there. But let's cut to it here. In the last 2 years, Mr. CEO and Dad had a better time. Paul. Paul was given to him by my daughter. She had named all of her grandparents herself somehow. I don't know how she did, but she came up with the name. And Paul was the name that he got. Becoming a grandfather changed you in the best way. I'll never forget Christmas of 2022, when you had already bought gifts for a little one who wasn't even really thought of yet. He sat there on the couch, crying and handed me these gifts because he was always scared being sick and not being able to make those memories. Well, little did he know, a couple of weeks later, you found out you're going to be Grandpa. And, you know, that changed him so much. And it was just a great experience and something I'll cherish forever, that he got to spend 2 years with that little girl. Lainey spent countless hours from changing her first diaper, trip to Columbus Zoo that just ironically happened because my wife said, "Hey, your dad's in Columbus too," and Dad got to spend the day riding around with this. All the family being there was great, but he got to ride around on that scooter with Lainey, and that's something I'll never forget and something I'll cherish forever. Dad, I know the last few years weren't easy. You fought so hard just to be here with us, just to make sure that Lainey knew her Paul. That kind of love, that kind of fight is something I'll do. I promise I'll keep your memory alive forever for her. I promise I'll protect and love others the way you did. Thank you for being my dad. Rest easy, big guy. Finally free from the body that held you down. I love you, always. I found a quote that rang with me. That'll be said here. A father's love is forever imprinted on his child's heart. Dad, your love is imprinted on mine forever. Thank you. You all agree that what a powerful tribute from the Lord. What you just saw takes so much courage. Tracy, the disciple today, she was even going to do that. And that's love, and that all of you. And it reflects so much of what I got to hear. Because as I was sitting listening, as I've been listening today, figure out what made this guy who he was. For today, the biggest thing that stuck out to me is he chose life. He chose life. They told me that he was a self-made man, that he wanted to make something of his life so he could have something for his kids. They told me about how long he hasn't felt good. And I think he kind of I get the feeling that he felt a lot worse than most people even knew. And you know, you can line up 10 other people and give them the same circumstances for 15 years, and they could shut down, they could become bitter, they could quit, and he did. He stayed for that little girl, and he stayed for you. And, you know, I asked him the other day, I said, you know, if your dad's life taught you any life lessons, what have you learned? And it's exactly that. We're going to choose love. And your little girl's not going to totally miss out on him because he's alive and well. I have 3 sons. I'm 60, so this sucks. And we talked about that.
this just sucks. And I had 3 sons. I was with my middle son a couple of years ago, maybe doing the same thing that many of you were doing. It was a Monday night, January 2nd, 23. It was a big Monday night in this part of the country because that night the Bengals were getting ready to play the Bills. Nationally televised game, big night. And if you remember anything about that night, you already know where I'm going because all that excitement came to a crashing halt the moment that young Damar Hamlin. And other than watching 9/11, I don't think I've ever watched anything more surreal than what we saw that night. I couldn't stop watching. 60,000 fans were quiet. The broadcasters didn't know what to tell us. For all we knew, we just saw somebody die. The other players, these young men in the prime of their life, they were scared, they were shaking, crying. And in the next couple of days, I don't think I've ever heard so much open talk about prayer and miracles. It went all over the world. Whether you're a sports fan or not, it would be impossible not to remember something about that story. And if you remember, 2 days later, their prayers got answered because on Wednesday, Damar Hamlin woke up. And he couldn't talk because he still had tubes in him, but he could write. And reportedly, they gave him a small whiteboard and a marker, and the very first thing that he wrote down was, "Did we win?" And in a moment of profound wisdom, the doctor dealing with Damar said, "You did. You win, Damar. We didn't even finish that other game. I know this feels like an unbelievable loss. And nothing we can say can take that away. But in every way that life matters, John North wins. He wins. And I think that's a powerful thing to be able to take away today, because the one thing we all still have, but unfortunately he doesn't, we all still have time. We all still have time, and we all have people that are watching how we handle life, and how we handle good things and hard things and everything in between. So the family wanted to make sure today that if nothing else, we all come to the Spirit. We're going to choose to wake up every single day that we can and make sure that we can do the very best we can. We got to talk a little bit about what happens next. What was his spiritual beliefs? And he did believe. He had a lot of time to think about his mortality because of what was going on with his health. I used to think that there would be a lot of people, once we ever got to wherever heaven is and what it looks like, I thought that there would be this long line at the front, and the main question we would hear over and over is, why? I don't get it. Why? Why didn't our prayers get answered? Why? I used to think that, but I don't think that anymore. I think the number one thing we're going to hear over and over when we finally get to whatever that is and whatever that looks like, it's not going to be the question why. It's going to be, why? See, he's in a place right now where there is no illness. There's nothing, just like we just heard from his son, nothing's holding him back. And if you share that belief today at any level, you don't have to say goodbye to your dad, to your husband, to your friends. You can simply say and mean it. John, we'll see you later. And until then, we've got this. We've got this. We're going to try to live our lives like he did. So I want to close today with a reading that I hope brings honor to the way that John lived his life. One of the most powerful things I've ever heard. And I want to close our time as a tribute to the way that he lived his life. It's part of a speech that Anna Quinlan gave one afternoon to a group of graduates at Villanova University. And I think it captures the same spirit that I understand John lived his life with. She said, "You all walk out of here this afternoon with one thing that no one else has. There will be hundreds of people out there with your same degree. There will be thousands of people that do what you do for a living. But you will be the only person alive who has sole custody of your life, your particular life, your entire life. Not just your life at a desk or on a bus or in a car or at a computer. Not just the life of your mind, but the life of your heart. Not just your bank account, but your soul. People these days don't talk about the soul very much anymore because it's much easier to write a resume than it is to craft a spirit. But a resume is a cold comfort on a winter night, or when you're sad or broke or lonely, or when you've gotten back the test results and they're not so good. So she said, here's my resume. I tried to be a good parent to my children. I tried to never let my profession stand in the way of being a good parent. I no longer consider myself the center of the universe. I show up, I listen, and I try to laugh. I'm a good friend to my spouse. I tried to make my marriage vows mean what they say. I showed up, I listened, and I tried to laugh. I'm a good friend to my friends, and they are to me. Without them, there would be nothing to say to you today because I would simply be a cardboard cutout. So I called them on the phone, I met them for lunch, I showed up, I listened, and I tried to laugh. I would be rotten or at best mediocre at my work if those other things were not true, because you cannot really be first-rate at your work if your work is all you want. So here's what I wanted to tell you, she said. And I have a feeling that if somehow miraculously John could be standing where I'm standing, he'd give us all the exact same advice. Y'all get a life. Y'all get a real life, not just a manic pursuit of the next promotion or a bigger paycheck or a larger house. You think you care so very much about those things if you blew an aneurysm one afternoon or found a lump in your breast. Get a life in which you're not alone. Find people that you can love and people that will love you back. And remember that love is not leisure, it's really hard work. So pick up the phone, send an email, write a letter, kiss your mom, hug your dad. Get a life in which you were generous and realize that life is the best thing ever and we have no business taking it for granted. She said, I learned this many years ago because something bad happened to me, something that if I had a choice would have never happened at all. But it has taught me the biggest lesson of my life. I learned to love the journey and not the destination. And I learned that this life is not a dress rehearsal, and today is really the only guarantee that any of us get. So I try to do that by telling everybody this advice. Consider the lilies of the field. Take a moment to look at the fuzz on the back of a baby's ear. Read a book in the backyard with the sun shining in your face, and learn to be happy. And think of life as a terminal illness, because if you do, you will live with joy and passion as it ought to be lived. It sounds to me like you all have the blessing for 57 years to get to witness someone live with joy and passion, exactly how life ought to be lived. So thank you for allowing Kelly and I to be part of this Holy Collision today. It's been a true honor to be able to be here with you, and I pray that you all continue to support this family up here as they move forward through this process. So I'd like to close a word of prayer, and I'm going to turn it back over to you. Okay? God, I thank you for this room. I thank you for every person in this room, for every relationship that's represented. I thank you for the incredible courage the family showed in getting up and speaking. Thank you most of all for John and the way that he lived his life, for the example that he leaves behind of how to live life in the good times and how to face life in the hard times. So I pray that as we leave this place today and we all go back to our busy lives, we will take some of that spirit with us. In your name we pray these things. Amen.
Thank you, Brian. And thank you all once again for joining us today, sharing your memories and the peace of your hearts. Continue to be present for each other in the months and years to come. As we conclude today, we'd ask your help in giving the family some private time together. If you didn't already have the opportunity to sign the guest registry, please do so before you take your leave. This concludes our service. Go now in peace and carry the death of John in enduring spirit with you. Thank you all very much.
Baby girl. Let's go say hi to Sandy. What did you say? So nice.
Tremendous.